Hello, everyone. We've got Arran back today, and Mark's joining us too, which is fantastic.
Hi there.
Yes, so for anyone that's watching this in the future, we go live each week, and there's a live stream that goes with it, and you'll be able to watch the live stream back of chats if you're watching in the future. So anyone that's on the live stream now, if you've got questions as we go along for Mark or Arran or me, that'd be fantastic to put them in there. I was saying to Mark just before we started that a lot of us have come together in the Guitar Builders Collective because of the Great Guitar Build-Off. So it means a lot to lots of people. And of course, Mark, you've been part of it since I think I saw you in the unofficial build-along in the first year of 2020 during the lockdown.
Yep.
And this year you've been an invitational like Arran to make guitars, which are now available for people to bid on with money going to charity, which we'll talk about a bit later. So Mark, what I'm going to do, if it's all right, is I'm going to open up a screen to share, and I thought we could just start off by asking you a bit about your build this year, and then get more into your history of how you got into guitar building. And for me, one of the things that I really love about your builds is the use of different materials and different techniques and processes. So it'd be great to find out about those as well. Let me just see if I can get this working. Here we go. Fantastic. So clearly, Mark, it looks like a guitar, but it also doesn't look like a guitar. It's got this kind of very artistic look to it, broken apart. When you're designing something like this, where does the starting point come from, if there is one?
There is always one, yeah. And I think for every single build, the starting point is always either like a crazy idea or trying to overcome some kind of industrial design challenge. In this case, it was like the crazy idea. It was, can I make a neck out of carbon fiber tubing of sorts? And that was the idea. And then the design basically happens around that idea, and essentially trying to implement it and seeing if it'll actually work and not blow up in my face.
I know what I enjoyed about your first video that went up when you were talking about the design was you really weren't sure if it was going to work or not. So it felt like we were exploring with you as you were going along.
Yeah, that's true. You know, these carbon fiber tubes, especially the round ones, are extremely rigid just on their own. And I kind of knew that it would work, and I figured, well, 3 has to work. But every time I put a little bit of tension on them, they would flex a little bit. As soon as I epoxied them to the body, there was 0 flex. So that's the point. At that point, I knew that it would actually work and it would actually withstand the pressure and tension of the strings. But yeah, it was all like just lack of confidence up until that point.
I think that was an exciting thing to watch as well, with both watching yours and Ty's, who ties in the chat as well. You both sort of had very conventional neck neck joints. So it was kind of exciting watching both of you to kind of see the stages where you passed that point where you knew that, yes, this is actually going to work as a guitar.
Yeah, this was all an experiment just on kind of seeing if like modern adhesives like epoxy can actually, hold these elements together. And, the pocket itself for each one of these tubes is semicircular. So this is not like a square pocket. They're semicircles or spheres or whatever. And that's all it takes, about this much epoxy. That's it in each one of those. And that's all you need to kind of hold that neck together. And it's really remarkable. Epoxy is really remarkable.
Yeah, it's amazing how there's a lot of modern products which clearly weren't around at the time of the invention of the electric guitar, but people are scared to use them, I think, in a guitar because it's not what was originally used. But it was only not originally used because it wasn't there. It wasn't an option.
That's absolutely true, yeah.
I see people talking about using hide glue all the time, and I think a lot of people want to avoid using, not necessarily, but want to avoid using animal products. but that seems to be a conversation that on a lot of the luthier groups I'm part of is you have to use the hot hide glue. There's no alternative.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you're building maybe like, I don't know, an acoustic instrument. I mean, if you're thinking about like longevity and the future and future-proofing it, you want to make sure that future luthiers can work on that guitar. So hide glue makes sense in that kind of like schema, but for something like this, yeah, I would never touch hide glue. And I'm with you, Daniel. Like using like animal products does seem a little bit weird to me. Like I'm trying to get away from bone nuts really hard, but they're just so accessible. Like those blank bone nuts are so cheap, and you can get them almost anywhere, and you can work them very easily. But I'm trying really hard to not use bone because it kind of grosses me out.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the fact that you just mentioned the idea of you want a future luthier to be able to access it. I know with a lot of my early builds when I was experimenting with things, I kept the builds and then went back and tried to sort them out. And I don't really know how I assembled certain bits. It seems to be screws and nuts and bolts all at funny angles to hold it together. I hadn't thought ahead of what needs to happen if you revisit that guitar and need to work on it.
Yeah, and in this case, this is like just the opposite. I mean, this was, I think these builds for invitational or just kind of one-off customs, and I hope whoever ends up owning it is happy with it. But for the most part, it was, a really interesting idea, concept, trying to like deploy it in a way that made sense. But I think, after playing it, it's a decent guitar. I mean, it plays really well, sounds different as you'd expect. But other than that, it's a fine instrument.
What about the feel on the back of the neck? Is it something that you got used to pretty quick, or did it feel weird at first?
It feels really cool. So it does feel kind of futuristic. It feels like you're holding. It doesn't feel like you're holding a guitar. It feels like you're holding like a medical instrument or some other type of like industrial designed thing. But it is actually thinner, if not as thin as a traditional neck. So it's not chunky, right? So these are, if I remember, 16 millimeter tubes.
Yep.
So the outer diameter is 16 mil, and then you add the thickness of the fretboard, and that's less. I think that's a less width than a normal guitar. So it doesn't feel chunky. It feels slick. It feels like a sporty. But yeah, your hands, they get used to it after a while. I mean, if you're used to like I guess super strats, wizard necks. Like I played a wizard neck when I was a kid, so it doesn't feel any different than that.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a few questions already in the chat about the build. One of them was with the epoxy to stick the tubes to the guitar. Todd's just asked, did you key the surface of the rods first, or is it just held? That's such a good question, and I 100% forgot to key the surface. So like, yeah, you want to have a mechanical bond for sure. So you definitely want to like kind of scuff them up or key them or score them in some way. I would assume that's the proper way to do it. But in that moment, I have everything set up, get my epoxy mixed, I'm ready to go, and just that tiny little detail escaped me. But in the end, it was completely unnecessary. It worked out perfectly. Bart's also put that he loves how you've also put the wood into the guitar as well, giving it that, I guess, traditional look. But as we know from watching the videos, it's not a traditional wood you've used. You've gone with the bamboo.
Yeah, I explored. I mean, before I even considered bamboo, I was exploring alternative materials. I was trying to find some kind of polymer or plastic that you could bond with epoxy. And you can't really bond plastic with anything. Like plastic just doesn't stick with normal glue to anything. They make plastic adhesives, but those aren't very good. So I really wanted to go the route of let's just use no wood whatsoever. I was researching all sorts of polymers. Nothing was really kind of standing out. And then I kind of had the bamboo idea. I thought, well, that's not really wood technically. It's a grass. So let's just go with that. And yeah, it looks a little, weird. Those fibers or whatever. It's a laminated, piece of wood. So you have all these kind of like, vertically running fibers, and it looks to me, it throws my eyes off a little bit, but it does look like wood, and it sounds sort of like wood. It machines like wood. You can actually use a chisel on it just like wood, but it is a little bit heavier. So there's a lot of resin in there, and just slightly a bit heavier than your traditional type of like timber. Yeah,
we were talking last week with Curtis, who was on from Goth Rider Creations, about using alternate materials, and obviously bamboo's being used in lots of products because of how sustainable it is. But one thing we liked about your use of bamboo is it came from a chopping board. So it was, when we're talking about how to source materials, and people are really concerned about, Curtis was talking about locally sourced woods and getting them instead of shipping woods all around the world to use. But this idea that wood can be really expensive if you buy it from a luthier merchant. But yeah,
100%. Yeah, like wood is getting way more expensive now, especially like luthier grade wood that's been kind of like, the moisture's been taken out of it, or it's been kiln dried or whatever. That's really expensive now, and you have to consider that when you're sourcing material. And I think like the first time I got the cutting board idea was I got a cutting board, I guess, for like Father's Day or something. And it was made out of a Wenge and Purple Heart. I'm like, this is a body blank. And it looks just like a body blank, and I'm going to turn that into a guitar one day. I never did because it was a gift. But yeah, that idea kind of stuck in my head, and then I had the bamboo cutting board, and just made sense.
I mean, like in this photo, I just think it looks fantastic, and also it looks fantastic because it looks different to me as well.
Yeah, those sharp corners, like I definitely wanted to go for this kind of like sharp corner design where that light will really kind of hit those edges, and bamboo is great at maintaining those sharp corners. So I kind of feel like wood would chip, or wood would kind of break off. But the bamboo, again, lots of resin in there, and bamboo is technically on the Janka hardness scale a little bit harder than oak. That's from what I've read. So all those sharp edges, you can actually keep them. You can round them off and sound them if you want to, but for the most part, I don't know if you could actually do that with like a traditional wood.
Yeah, well, that's what's always, I think, exciting about using a new material is not knowing how it's going to respond and what can come of it.
Yeah, I did get a little bit of chip out. So again, those strands of bamboo, if you're machining, like, if your router bit's going kind of like, the way it shouldn't be going, it'll like chip out a little bit. So I had like 3 spots where I had chip out, and I just kind of glued them back in with super glue. So that's something you need to be careful with, because you don't really have a traditional grain, but you do have this kind of like faux grain from these strands. So it's something to kind of keep in mind if you're working with bamboo.
Was it sort of consistent across the board, or did it vary a bit like wood can sometimes?
It was consistent, 100% consistent. And so like on a CNC, what you're looking for is chips, right? You want your end mill to create chips, and the chips need to look a certain way. And it was just perfect, just like wood. And again, I had to do some chisel work on there too, and the chisels just cut into it very easily. And it's surprising because a chisel can cut through there very easily, but it's still such a hard wood. So it's a little contradictory in some ways, where it's like really hard, really heavy, but it machines well, and it basically cuts really easy.
So I also noticed in your videos when you were going through the stages of making it that you design everything on a computer first. Is that the way you work with everything?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not an artist. Like, I'm not a fine liner. I can't draw, a tree. But as soon as I got my hands on a computer, that's really where things took off. And I do all my designing in CAD. And I guess it's just like someone with a paper and a pencil and an eraser. It's the same thing, only I'm just using, a mouse and a computer. So I'm able to have iterations. And the beautiful thing about working like in the box in a computer is that I can go off on these like design tangents, and everything is a variation and everything is a version. So I end up having all these multiple versions of the guitar by the time I'm done. So, maybe it went off in that direction. Like, for example, the neck started off as a rectangular tube neck. I have all those designs saved. there still can be a rectangular neck guitar. But then I go off on a tangent. And the cool thing about computer files is that they're free. It doesn't cost me anything. I can save 100 computer files, right? And it takes up no space. And so I love designing in the computer that way. But yeah, I spend a huge amount of time on the computer before I ever come into the shop. And when I do come into the shop, then it's more computer work because it's not just CAD design. You have to think about CAM, which is the toolpaths. You have to design the toolpaths and tell the end mill like how to cut, where to cut, which direction to go. And that takes up a lot of time too. So a majority of my time is like in the computer, and especially with new toolpaths. Like I have like known good toolpaths. Like if you ask me to build a Telecaster, I can slap it on the CNC and I can walk away. I know those toolpaths work. But for custom jobs like this, where I've never done a toolpath like that, I have to like babysit the CNC. And it's a lot of computer, a lot of time in front of the screen.
There's been a question that's appeared a few times about what your day job might work in some way, but are we going to be surprised that it's totally different?
Yeah, no, I went to school for design, so I studied to be a designer, and I was a designer for a little bit. But no, my job has nothing to do with like design or computer work. I mean, I wish it did. But yeah, I work for a Silicon Valley tech company, and I don't have like a media clearance to talk about it, so I'm not allowed to talk about it. But yeah, I work for the biggest Silicon Valley fruit company. I'll say that.
Oh, okay.
So he has surprised us for the answer then.
Yeah, but yeah,
that's a great answer.
Yeah,
but with that design background to you anyway from studying it.
Yeah, and I mean tangentially, like I guess my job has to do with business process management, which is totally boring and not glamorous in any way. But I do spend a lot of time on the computer, pushing things around and kind of design work-ish a little bit.
So if we just step back from this design for a minute, how did you get into designing guitars? Was that something that came from your studying or a later point in life?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a guitar player. Like, I'm a guitar player. And I've always modded guitars. I think we all mod guitars. Like, that's just what we do. And then it just became like this quest that every guitar player goes through, where I was buying custom guitars, like expensive custom. I have a guitar. I'm a guitar collector too. So I have a collection of guitars, really nice ones. And I was buying really expensive custom guitars, and just it got to the point where like, maybe I should just try to build one. Since day zero, like not even day one, like day zero, I knew that the type of guitar I wanted to build and the quality needed to be done on a CNC, like day zero. Like that was always, I knew that from the start. So before I even bought my first body blank, I knew I wanted a CNC. And so I just cut my teeth on building Telecaster bodies. And the beautiful thing about like that education, like every Telecaster body was a piece of junk and garbage. And I made a lot of mistakes, but you have to go through that journey. You have to go through the journey of making mistakes. I sold every single one of those Telecaster bodies that I made, like the first one all the way till I made like 20. And that's how I bought my CNC. So like, it's so, I know a lot of people who start out building guitars like, oh, this guitar they made, this first one is not very good. Same thing. They were terrible. And I still sold every single one of them. But yeah, like my journey came from being a guitar player to modding guitars, to buying custom guitars, to like, I'm just going to build this for myself. That's where I landed.
Amazing. And out of interest then, someone's asked, Mick's asked, can we see your guitars? But I appreciate we're in your workshop. When you're saying you're buying the custom guitars, are they custom guitars from big brands, or are you looking at more boutique builders as well at that point?
I was buying everything that was like kind of in vogue and in fashion at the time. So for example, like I'm one of the early Strandberg adopters. Like I have one of their first oldest Strandberg Bodens. The guitar company out of the Netherlands, Aristides, or they're made out of Arran. Like I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know. They're big brands. They're like, they're the cool brands.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, like those type of guitars, which are quite expensive, but I needed to have them, right? You go on this tone quest where you think, I need that guitar. That guitar is going to give me something that I don't have. And, it's not really true, right? We just keep buying them. But that gets expensive. So yeah, then just try to build it myself. Simple as that.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, but I recently went to a guitar show. There's lots of guitar shows in the UK. I get the impression that in other countries there's less, or they're further apart, or it's just like one big one. But there's lots of ones in the UK, and they often have a mix of people that are selling essentially like from their shop. So they're bringing along a collection of just guitars they would sell in the shop, or there might be a collection of really high-end custom guitars that they're selling from well-known brands. And then you get all the boutique builders, a lot of whom are doing it in their spare time. And you can really see the difference, I think, in quality from those boutique builders compared to even some of the more expensive boutique factory-built ones. The hand-built ones are just so much better a lot of the time. And a lot of that comes down visually to the choices people are able to make when they're making a one-off guitar, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I'm lucky, I can build 3 guitars a year, if I'm lucky, right? And that's why this great guitar build-off invitation was so hard, because I've never built a guitar that fast ever, and I never want to build a guitar that fast. So yeah, it has to do with like taking your time and not being beholden to anybody. Like, I'm just going to be in my shop. I'm going to build. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to take my time, and the quality just increases exponentially that way. So yeah, it makes total sense that the boutique builders are going to have a finer instrument.
So if you're making, you say maybe 2 or 3 a year, are you making them for yourself?
It's all about the idea. I don't make them for myself. I make them to kind of pursue that concept that I have. And then once it's a completed build, then I can do whatever I want with it. I can fall in love with it, hold on to it for a while, or sell it down the road.
Three's about my limit too. I think I'll have 3 finished this year. And same with Great Guitar Build Off. This is the quickest guitar that I've built from start to finish. The 3 I've built, one was a commission, one the build off will go to someone, and then another one for myself. And it's the one for me that's the unfinished one at the moment, because I just had to put that aside because the other 2 sort of had priority for a decent amount of time.
It even says completed guitar on your page. I wonder if it says uncompleted.
Or is it completed?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just bring yours up to drop you in as well. Yeah, because obviously one of the things about the guitar build-off was the competition element last year and this year. And so you won a vote last year, Arran, which was from all the builders that were involved for their favourite build, and that's put you into the invitationals this year.
Yes, I mean, mine, to be involved in it this year is sort of something that I'd never even contemplated having the opportunity to do. So it was kind of one of those things that it's like, well, of course I will, when I was asked to do it. And then it was like, oh, now what do I do? So I kind of went with, it's essentially the same body shape as my build-off guitar from last year, but then just changing, the features and playing around with the different pickups, different type of trim. So I kind of thought, and also I think for this guitar, it's the first guitar that I'm building for someone that I don't know who it's going to. So the ones I've built for other people are people that I know, so you can sort of work with them to build what they want. So this was kind of, the first opportunity to build something to kind of imagine what someone would want, or, people buying raffle tickets or however it was going to go. So when I sort of heard about Allegory sort of supplying a lot of the components, it was really that, all right, I found the chameleon pickups, which have got 6 different outputs for each pickup. And then it sort of got me thinking, all right, well, let's see how wide a range of sounds can we sort of get from this. It sort of went from there.
I've got to say, for something with potentially that many ranges of sounds, it doesn't have that many controls, which quite often you see those guitars overloaded with buttons and things.
Yeah, well, Alex from Allegory, on the website, he's got some wiring diagrams, and the one on the website had a rotary switch instead of the 2 3-way switches, and he sort of said, oh, look, I've worked out a better design for it. So I basically went with that. The kill switch I sort of added in extra, just as an extra feature. I sort of said in the video that the last 2 build-off guitars that I've done have all had some battery-powered components in it, so it kind of just felt like a cool thing to do to add the kill switch. And I mean, it's just the kill switch works without the LED on. It's just a mechanical switch, but yeah, why not? But yeah, so basically the construction of the pickups, I didn't get into how he's built them. I was saying to obviously you guys just before that I'd had to have routed all the cavities and everything before I had the pickups in my hand. So the cavities were just routed using standard humbucker templates. And then when I went to install them, they didn't fit. So I think there's, whether it's extra winds of wire or different magnet configuration, essentially the covers are struggling to contain everything that's in there, so they kind of flare out on the side. So I had to sort of do some last minute alterations to get them to fit. But yeah, essentially there's the six wires coming off each pickup. And from understanding the diagram, the main, and I don't know which output wire it is, but one goes straight to the switch, and then all the other wires get kind of passed through the 2 3-way toggle switches, so one for each pickup, and each of the pots is a push-pull pot as well, so that sort of changes the output. So yeah, essentially each pickup has a high and low output, and then sort of 3 different sounds on top of that.
Fantastic.
Here, Scott.
Welcome.
Morning. Got my
I can say good morning as well for this, this particular stream
tomorrow. Hey, you're literally calling from the future, from tomorrow.
I am, like always.
So how do you both feel then about this guitars that you've made for the Invitational that people are bidding on? Well, they're not bidding on; they're buying raffles for to get.
Yeah, look,
it's going to go to a random person somewhere.
It's a cool, as I sort of said, to be involved was something I never expected. So to kind of see people buying tickets for something that I've built, it is a pretty cool feeling. I probably got to when I was assembling the guitar as well. I kind of had that moment that, man, I really like this guitar. This is going to be really hard to send on its way. But then, I got over that pretty quick because, it's, since it is made from recycled wood, I've got, the blackwood that I used from my parents' cabinet, I've got a stash of it in the shed. I could probably build another 10 or 15 guitars, like I've done with this one. So, to me, it was kind of like, well, I've actually got the materials. The silky oak came from a timber yard, a 5-minute drive away. So I kind of thought, well, you know what, I can always build something if I love it that much. But yeah, it is pretty cool to know that, for me, the first guitar that is going to go to someone that it wasn't built specifically for, or someone that, I know personally.
I wonder if there's anything explicitly written that says we can't buy a raffle ticket for someone else's guitar. Like if I wanted to buy some tickets for Aaron's guitars, could I do that?
Yeah, definitely.
Really? You think that would be kind of weird? Like if I won?
I've only watched the daily guitar draw once, and that was the other day when Ben was doing his live stream of his build. And at the end of the day, they went into the daily guitar draw. And one of the winners that day of a guitar was someone that was working on the live stream in the building,
in the office
for Crimson. Yeah,
I
think.
I haven't been sure. I don't know. When I've sort of showed it to my parents and friends, they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll get a ticket." It's like, I don't know how that would look if a worldwide sort of raffle, and I'm going to drive it, 15-minute drive and give it to my parents if they win it. So there could be some interesting kind of things, but we'll wait and see, I suppose.
I hadn't thought about it just because I've got too many guitars already.
Yeah. I know in last year's one, I didn't bid last year for sort of that reason. It's like, well, I'm sort of building a guitar in the competition that, I've got in my hot little hands at the end of the day. And it kind of, to me, it felt a bit weird if by chance I did win another one and then had, a couple of guitars from the comp. So, yeah, we'll maybe we just have to get each other's guitars and just swap them around when we win.
Right.
Because you were saying earlier, Mark, that when you finish a guitar, normally you get to live with it for a bit and then decide whether it's you didn't use the phrase a keeper, but whether you keep it or sell it. And how do you feel about this one? Is it going to be a hard one to let go of?
I guess under normal circumstances, if you were building like a guitar out of wood, you probably want to hold on to it for a while, just because wood moves, wood shifts. You want to ensure it's out the door, set up properly. So I would never send a guitar out the door like as soon as it's done. This guitar is different, right? It's not susceptible to temperature changes or humidity. It's just a carbon fiber neck with rich light fretboard. There's no wood on it anywhere. So I don't feel bad for setting this out the door, like right out the door. It's really stable. It's going to probably be in tune as soon as whoever gets it opens it up. So I'm not sad that it's leaving. I consider it more like a work of art than a guitar. So I'm happy to see it go to a new home.
I think it's great as well that there's the charity element with the tickets. Add something to it. Scott, before you got here, Mark was saying that with a lot of his designs and builds, the starting point is a concept or an idea, or I don't think you said a challenge, but in my mind you were talking about this idea of exploring things. So if I just share your build from last year, what was the starting point there? What was the drive behind evolving this build?
The starting point was the curved frets. I'm going to call them curved frets, just so that's understandable. But yeah, this is an exponential scale guitar, which is a little bit different than multi-scale. And that was the concept. The concept was, can I build this guitar? Can I bend the frets appropriately? Can I do all that? And so I started with the fretboard because I knew that if I couldn't achieve what I wanted, I could kind of scrap the whole build from there. So this all started off with like a spreadsheet and a formula. And that formula was able to give me the exponential scale that I wanted. And it took quite a bit of finagling and pushing back and forth to get the degree of the fan that I wanted. But once I was happy with it, I could actually start attempting to bend those frets, excuse me. And then once I knew I had that down, once the fretboard was done and fretted, everything else is gravy. Like I can start designing the body, I can start finishing up the whole thing. But yeah, the concept was the exponential scale.
Yeah, I put it on without the sound on for the moment, but seeing you play it sort of shows, but for me, I can't imagine what it feels like to play, not just because of the curved frets, but because of the amount of strings. It's not something I'm that used to.
It was, yeah, and I think the first time I strung it up and tried to play it, I think I almost cried, and I was just completely depressed because I could not play it. Like I 100% could not play it. The other reason why it was really difficult is that there's no fret markers on it, right? And I have side dots, but those side dots are worthless because you're looking down at the side dot and the fret's going that way, or the fret's going that way, and it's impossible to play. But you just keep trying, you keep trying to learn the instrument, and you have to approach it like a new instrument. It's not a guitar, it's not a bass, it's something else. And if you can kind of like change that perspective in your head and say, I'm not going to play this like a guitar, I'm going to play it like something else. Like there's two hands right there, for example. then things kind of got a little bit easier, you know.
I mean, one thing I remember about this video, if you don't mind me just playing the sound for a moment, is how wonderful it sounded, and what you're playing was amazing. So it's interesting to say you almost cried because you weren't sure how to do it, and then that idea of practicing. Oh, actually, am I showing the sound there? No.
No, not for me.
Yeah, sorry, I have to do that again then. Never mind.
I was going to say, I mean, that reminded me of something. There are a lot of little terminology things in the guitar world that I completely disagree with. I've never liked multi-scale. I know why they call it that, but in my mind, it was more of a compound scale. It's more of an equation, and it's just
Oh, sorry. I won't interrupt. I'll play a little bit then, and then we come back to what you say. I can't tell how uncomfortable you feel listening to your own playing there.
It's so cringy. Yeah. Yeah, I call those YouTube solos. Like, I've learned that don't try to write a solo, and don't try to record a solo on camera, because it's going to be you're going to have 50 takes. It's better to just improvise like in one take. And so like I feel a little bit cringy when I watch that guitar solo.
I think it's a great example of what you were saying about it, of approaching it like a new instrument. Actually, look, here we go. Someone's asking what tuning.
I've just put that one on.
Yeah.
Gosh, that was a while back. I'm certain the tuning is written somewhere in the description. It's a 9-string. I honestly, sorry, I don't remember. But the whole point of the exponential scale, right, is unlike multi-scale. If you think about multi-scale, if you think about let's say you're starting off at 25.5 on the high E, or 25, right? The only string that is 25.5 is that high E. And then it starts basically going up. So you lose all the tension you're normally used to. With exponential scale is because you have a scalar growth factor, and you can tell it how fast to grow or how slow to grow or decay. The bottom strings feel like a normal 6-string guitar. They're almost straight if you look at the curve. And that was on purpose. That was by design. So you want your high strings to be near 25 inches, right? And then you can start growing that exponential scale towards your lower, longer scale length. And so tuning, it's going to be basically on the normal 6-string tuning for those high strings.
Is that what you're about to discuss when I interrupted you, Scott? The idea of multi-scale?
Wait. Just the fact that it's an equation, and most people have the equation. Stop sharing on. But this one, I remember watching. I was blown away by this thing from the inception.
So maybe then we could ask you, Mark, why are you making things for YouTube? What's your drive there? Obviously, for the Great Guitar Build-Off, there was the need to share and produce videos. But what else do you get out of it, or what's your drive for doing it?
That's a really good question. I guess, like I mentioned earlier, first and foremost, I'm a guitar player. I'm a guitar collector. And, I'm building these guitars to, again, kind of try to deploy this concept or overcome a design challenge. I'm going to be doing this anyway. there's something in all of us where we have to build. I don't know why we build. I think I even have a video on the why, and I think it's called like obsession or something. We do. I don't know why we do it, and we put such a huge amount of level of effort into building, and it's the end-to-end process of a guitar building, right? Like holistically, if you think about it, is huge. Like the end-to-end process is gigantic, and no clue why we do it, but I have to do it. And I think all of us like have to do it. We have to build. And so I'm going to be building no matter what. So I might as well just, hit record on this camera here. So like I have an overhead cam. I don't have to do anything except hit record. There's one over there too. So it doesn't take any time out of my day when I'm building to just hit a remote control and hit record. I'm going to do that anyway. And it also kind of like feeds this obsession. So like I do make money off of YouTube. That's not a secret. And that helps me kind of continue with this whole like building obsession.
Fair enough.
That's where I hope to
The
be.
way you just described it, you can just press record and it's done. A lot of people, it seems quite stressful to do the recording, to do all the editing.
Yeah, but I think that is also a process. So if you think about the guitar building process, it's huge. The video process is also huge, but there's a lot of things you can do to refine and optimize that process. And one of those things is have a permanent camera setup. Like I don't move these cameras, they're here, they're there, I have a remote control. And then editing is also the thing that I learned really early on, which is there's no point in recording 5 minutes worth of a process. You just need 20 seconds. 20 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 20 seconds there. And then your editing, when there's this big, becomes this big, right? So there's no point in having like an hour's worth of footage for a 10-minute video. And so no one needs to see you screw in 6 screws, right? You just got to show them 20 seconds of the first screw.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. For me, the recording is just part of the process. Building doesn't happen without a camera. So, it's just part of the process.
Often when I've sort of done it, that I've sort of been, mine's were just filmed on my iPhone, so I kind of like it. I've got a few spots that are the regular spots, but then it's kind of good just being able to move it around. But yeah, I'm the same, that as I'm sort of building in my head, I'm thinking, all right, what do I want to show on the video? And then I'll film that bit, or if it's a process that I've shown 3 or 4 times on past videos, it's all right, what's a better camera angle or a different way of showing it? Because I think that's when doing this for creative enjoyment and for fun, whenever I kind of feel like, hang on, this is just the same as I filmed it last time and it might look the same when I edit it, that's when I think, all right, no, I've got to do this differently. So I'm sort of even thinking next year, how am I going to mix it up a bit just so it's keeps things fresh, almost fresh for me and then hopefully for other people as well.
Oh, same thing, yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
No, I've had to struggle with that too, but just because I've got 20 different builds that are on YouTube. So every time I build, I'm like, oh my God, this is like the 20th time I've, shown cutting fret slots. I mean, who wants to see this shit? Struggling for ways to make it more, interesting or show different parts of the process or something.
100% agree there. I also consume a lot of YouTube videos. Like I'm watching everybody's videos, right? Anything having to do with guitar building. And I'm in the same space where I just I don't need to see frets being installed or polished. I just don't need to see that anymore. And the other day I was on YouTube and a thumbnail popped up. I didn't watch the video, but it was a really interesting title, and it was Consume Like an Artist. And whatever that video is about, I don't know, but I took it in my own way, consume like an artist. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is consume videos with a refinement and an intention and a purpose. And that means kind of staying away from guitar building videos and kind of exploring other things. And one of the things that you mentioned, Aaron, was how do we make this fresh? How do we make it interesting? That's what I want to learn now. My education now for consuming is how can I be a better storyteller, right? And a better cinematographer, because that's what I want to do now. I want to show the backstory, the origin story, the history. And it's not just about cutting, slots for a fretboard anymore, right? We're beyond that now.
One of the things I wanted to do for my build-off guitar, which I just ran out of time to do, was the recycled blackwood when it was made in the cabinet, 30 years ago, however. It was milled and the trees were growing about an hour and a half away. So that was part of my initial idea, that I would go for a day trip and find the location, the approximate spot, and kind of tell a bit of a story from there. And I use I mentioned these things in the video, but that was the idea, that I actually go to these places, and that I use the abalone fret dots, because the coastline along there where the wood came from, we used to camp there every summer as teenagers, and we'd snorkel off the rocks, and there'd be abalone just on the rocks where people are surfing and swimming. So that was sort of part of my backstory of this, why the wood was used and the things. But I just ran out of time to have that weekend to drive down the coast and sort of do all that. But that's kind of they're the things that I'm kind of thinking about moving forward, to just have something in there, as I said, it's mainly for me, it's to keep it interesting and exciting for me, and if I'm excited by it and interested by it, then there's hopefully a few people out there that will feel the same way.
100%.
It got me wondering when you were talking then about, again, with the Great Guitar Build-Off, a lot of people are filming and editing for the first time. So I wonder if making your first film of slotting frets and your first film of sanding a guitar surface is a sort of rite of passage in the guitar building YouTube world. And you have to, like building your first guitar, you go through the stages before you find your technique and your voice to evolve it into what your own thing.
I've kind of, when I've thought about it, you probably only have to go back 5 years or so, and most of the guitar building videos were the tutorial based. This is how you do it, and people were learning from that. But I kind of feel that has sort of, any process that you need to do, it's going to be easy to find 100 videos on it, whereas 5 or 6 years ago there weren't as many. So that's what I kind of feel, that people that have sort of doing it because that's what they've seen doing. But maybe it's time to kind of think of the next thing to discover.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people in every GGBO that are still in, okay, and this is how you do it, and especially for GGBO stuff. I'm thinking anybody watching this is probably a guitar builder. They don't need to see this. They don't care, unless I've got some goofy idea that goes against our Lord and Savior Ben's instructions from the past. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think GGBO is a competition, right? It's a game, and it's real easy to win a game if you understand the rules. And like you said, Scott, if you're going to be showing those kind of things where guitar builders are watching, you're going to get a loss of interest pretty quick. So if you kind of think in terms of GGBO as a game, as a competition, and kind of focus on those areas that are important. For example, this year it was all about photography. We need 10 photos. We need 10 photos. Well, my photos are going to be awesome then. I'm going to focus on that. If that's going to be the driving force of the competition, nothing else matters. So it's all about just kind of gaming the game.
Yeah.
When I think back on videos that I've liked in the past, the memorable ones are often the ones that are very different. Like Capone Makes Stuff, having a almost stop motion animated piece of music that he'd made, and certain I've forgotten his name, Malloy. Tungsten guitar, not tungsten. It's funny when I see names written down, I've never said them aloud. Now, but he had lots of little special effects in his videos of things sort of blowing up and disappearing, and it added something to the enjoyment I had of watching it. And people going out to buy their wood, seeing that element was new for me as well. And of course, Arran, your whole Lord of the Rings story element to it as well.
And that's the the thing for me last year. It was, what am I going to do that's going to make it fun for me? It's tell a story, put that behind what I'm sort of building, and I enjoyed it, and it took me a long time finding all the passages to narrate and read over the top, but I loved it. I would have spent as many hours on the playing around with the videos and having fun with it as I did sort of building the guitars. But it's if it's fun for me, then I'm going to do it, and if other people like it, awesome.
Great. Yeah, it was Tunguska.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember early on watching him mill a tree in his front yard.
Yeah, mad.
Yeah.
So while we talk about videos and things, next week we're going to be looking at the three of us are going to be looking at the different competitions for this year's Great Guitar Build-Off and talking about some of our favourites. So I'm putting a day aside coming up to sit and watch lots of videos with a healthy supply of tea and biscuits.
See, and I'm on the other side. I've watched so many that it's all a blur. I'm going to have to actually focus on, But really, I think it's just going to be going to the GGBO website and looking at the pictures just to remember whose was whose.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool ones this year. It's going to be hard.
Yep. I've gone to watch a few of the final ones, but even just the Great Guitar Build-Off feed on Instagram, that a lot of the guitars that are coming up on there, they've been, like most, they've sort of caught my eye, whether it's just the shape or the wood combination or something with it. So I think there's going to be quite a lot of really cool guitars to watch and for people to think about.
There are a number of pretty interesting builds. So it's tough every year to try to pick, favorites, but this one's going to be no different. It's going to be hard.
Well, while we're here, as we haven't mentioned yours yet, Scott, here's your one.
It's going to be a little tough to say goodbye to that. However, I know who it's going to, so I can, There are times I'm like, I wish I hadn't sold that just yet. I wish I'd got more pictures before I did. But this one I could probably still have access to.
I remember when I was at school, my art teacher saying how disappointed he was once that he'd sold some of his art to a local dentist. It was up on display in their waiting room, and then the dentist shut down. He never got to see his art again, and he kind of wished he hadn't sold it off.
Ooh.
And that sort of stuck with me, this idea of if you're making something, then once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, ooh, that reminds me. I had a dude call me out of the blue a couple weeks ago and said he thought he had one of my guitars from a pawn shop. It was a really early build because he sent me a picture, but he was looking for, how much is it worth? I'm like, I don't know. It's a boutique piece of shit. Whatever, somebody will pay for it. He got it at the pawn shop for $100. They were trying to get $600 for it, and it just sat there. So when he offered $100, they took it.
And it's enjoying it?
It was kind of disappointing because I remember who I made it for, and I was like, really? You pawned it? But
I had someone message me with a guitar they bought at a pawn shop that was one of mine, and it was definitely not one of mine, but it was definitely a very bad copy of one of mine. And you could see how they tried to. It was a one that looked like a skull, and I'd hand painted it, and they tried to copy the style of the way I'd painted and the way I'd carved it, but it just looked really terrible. And I felt very honoured that someone had clearly seen what I'd made, because it was exactly the same design and shape. It wasn't just they've also made a skull. It was clearly copied. But I was quite moved by that.
Speaking of that, some time ago, because once in a blue moon, I always had the idea of the ice cream sandwich, and I didn't do it for the longest time. But once in a while, I would Google ice cream sandwich guitar and verify that the universe still did not have one. So, sometime after I made it, I searched, and I found this whole thread on Reddit where people were talking about it, because it was I forget, it wasn't Ugly Guitars, but It was a Reddit category that is a common theme, something along the lines of, shouldn't have been made, or there's something to that effect. I don't remember. But there was my ice cream sandwich guitar, and all these people were talking about it. Why is this on the stupid list? This is awesome. Blown away that, people were talking about my guitar, and I wasn't involved. I never knew it had happened. It was crazy.
Yeah, so Mark and people that maybe are watching, the three of us have been part of a group chat that have recently been discussing how a number of our guitars have appeared on an Instagram page called Ugly Guitars. And whether it should be an honour that we've been selected to be on it or not.
I remember the ice cream sandwich guitar. That guitar looked it looked like an ice cream sandwich. Like, it looked edible. It was so realistic.
That's what I was shooting for. I was kind of amazed that the walnut turned out just, not quite so uniform, but I mean, it didn't need to be painted or stained or anything. It looked chocolate. Yeah.
Can I just get back to something Mark mentioned earlier about this way of looking for inspiration through what you're watching on YouTube to think like an artist? Are there particular things that you've watched recently, or channels that you found that you might recommend, or that are maybe just important to you in some way? Or maybe I'm putting you on the spot.
Is that a question for me, Dan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I find that interesting because we always talk about guitars, but obviously a lot of us are interested in other things as well. There's already been a comment in the chat with something I mentioned to you before about your Nostromo badge there. There's a lot of sci-fi fans, I think, in the guitar building world.
Oh, yeah. So there's a couple. I'll just mention three. I guess my favorite channel that's non-guitar building, right, is Steady Crafton. I don't know if does anyone know Steady Crafton? Okay, the Craftsman.
Yeah.
I mean, the level of effort that's involved in making those videos. We talked about the story, like, it's lighting, it's the colors, it's the camera angles, and it's like the final product at the end. Like, I'm just in awe at his work. And so, yeah, I'm a subscriber to his channel, and I get a lot of inspiration. Again, it has nothing to do with guitar building, but just the quality of the videos themselves. This one is just fantastic.
I remember I started watching him during lockdown, and he was just becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And he started focusing. It was very clear he was initially making videos that, like his early videos, had done well. And then he just started making videos about things he was very passionate about. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was talking about lighting, talking about how he filmed things and his equipment as well as his just love of different films and things. And he's just something about him is very easy to watch. It feels like he's a friend of yours, and you're almost talking directly to you.
Agree. Yeah, his voice is also just phenomenal as well. I think he composes all the music too for his videos as well. So really inspirational. And then I guess another one that's non-guitar building related. I think there are very few geniuses on YouTube, right? There's a lot of mad scientists on YouTube, but there are very few like people whose brain that you kind of see them and hear them and know them. And it's like, man, that guy's probably a genius. And that's Sam from Look Mum No Computer. Is anyone familiar with Look? Okay, he's over in England, and he mostly works with synthesizers and very old vintage equipment, like old stuff. And he brings them back to life. He has a museum somewhere in England too. And this one also, I think this guy is like a walking genius. I mean, he can do anything. Super inspirational.
Well, I'm trying to do. This is an organ he made out of Furbies.
Yes.
He reprogrammed the Furbies so they play when he puts his MIDI into it. Yes, you're right. He is a bit of a genius, and just his enthusiasm is catching as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, also I think about scope, like all of us might think, okay, yeah, we want to build guitars, we want to record them on YouTube, maybe we want to have a following. Sam built a museum. Like, he used all his like Patreon funds to like fund and build a museum, which is like incredible when you think about like a goal and scope and thinking about like the future, thinking bigger than just a YouTube channel. And I love that too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I guess the last one, this one, I don't quite know what her name is, but I was talking about storytelling, and that's something I want to eventually be able to do. And I came across this girl who is, I guess she just graduated from high school, Natalie Lynn. And I've just been obsessed with her camera work and her editing skills and her color grading and her storytelling. And this is someone who will spend like 4 months building a YouTube video, right? So they're not just YouTube videos, they're films, they're like mini movies. And I love that kind of, again, level of effort. Like, how much time are you putting into this? And then what are you getting out of it? And so I know that like, I can't relate to like a teenage girl. Like, I don't know what's going on like, emotionally and culturally, but I can relate to like the visual elements of it. And so that's been super inspiring. And I think I want to kind of pursue something along the lines of what she does in terms of how do you tell a story?
So what did you say her name was?
Natalie Lynn. Yeah, so Lynn. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I think. Is this the right Natalie Lynn?
Yeah, and again, like very few posts, but it's the story really that really got me. And again, how can we relate to like a teenage girl? Well, she made it possible, like just with her these films that she calls them. And and I was really inspired by like just again, like just like the craftsman, like the amount of work you're putting into these videos. You can tell, like it's just from everything from topography to the camera angles, just to everything. It's just amazing. So that's where I'm at now, and that's hopefully something I'm going to probably copy her entire style moving forward.
I think it's always interesting when you see something like that to wonder where they're going to be in 10 or 15 years and whether they'll be a big, well-known name that's culturally influential.
Speaking of that, it reminds me of one of the more creative things I used to. I haven't watched that much of recently, but I did for quite some time. Is Alex Steele? You familiar with him? Steel, knives and that type of thing, metal forging. And he was fascinating to watch. But one of the things that stuck with me is, he was just a kid out of high school or something. And, his channel just took off and he's making enough money off of YouTube that, that's just what he does. And, that was always one of my dreams was, if you could just make enough money off of YouTube for it to, feed, the beast. But there was a show, at least in America, Forged in Fire. And it was like a competition thing. They get 4 dudes together and, give them like 8 hours to build, something. They give them some challenge. And to watch them, forge steel was just amazing all on its own. But to put it in that format made it even, a little bit cooler. So, and I know nothing about it, but you find yourself wishing that you did just because. But it's just that creative process and it's that building something, And I wound up thinking, they should do this for guitar builders. That'd be a much smaller audience, but.
Yeah, I remember Alex. He built a lot, like you said, knives and swords. But my favorite, I guess, series when he tried to duplicate a Zippo lighter. I don't know if you saw that series. And it's like you think, okay, the Zippo lighter is this tiny little thing. Can he, with his giant shop, can he like remake that? And it was so fascinating because he failed so many times to get that perfect mold of the case of the Zippo lighter. And it's incredible how much precision goes into those Zippo lighters. And they've been around for like decades. Yeah. But to see him try to like fail and fail and fail, that was like just fascinating.
Yeah. I didn't see that one. I've seen him do all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to find that one. That sounds fun.
That does sound very cool. We've got guitar videos to watch, though.
Well, start branching out from guitars, and then of course there's the resin, river tables, because it's still related. It's still wood. It's still finish, But and there's some good ones there, like Blacktail Studios. I go through cycles where I get interested in like sculpting and things like that, So want to watching a bunch of sculpting videos, but. Doesn't really relate, besides artistic and creative. But
I've got to say, I back to what Mark was saying about moving away from the guitar building videos and watching something else that could open up thinking like an artist, open up the ways you're looking at things. I was thinking the other day about my Instagram feed and my Facebook feed, since I've basically moved myself away from being a individual person on it, and I don't follow my friends or anything like that. I just follow my interests, and it feels like at the moment my Instagram feed is a bit like a bit of education. Every time I sit down and look through it, I'm learning something else about guitar building and things like that. And then within it, I've also got a lot of science fiction illustrators that I follow and model makers, and I feel like every time I'm looking at it, I'm getting something out of it, which isn't just learning what my friends had for lunch or how their family is doing. I feel more distant from my friends maybe in some ways, but I feel like it's a valid tool. But that's Instagram tricking me maybe into thinking it's a valid learning tool. But there's so much you can get that I think is enjoyable, beneficial, and educational from social media. And it's a shame it's tarnished with all the other rubbish that goes with it.
it depends on how your feed's set up, and every platform is different. The type of stuff I consume there. Like TikTok, I go there and it's all comedy.
So I want to get back to guitars though, because we had Jack from JC Guitar Company on a few weeks ago talking about CNC building, and that's been our most popular video. And I think we're going to have, I haven't told the other two yet, another one, Daniel, coming on to talk about how he sort of does hybrid builds. So he uses CNCs to do some of the basic things and then finishes a lot by hand. And Mark, you were saying when you knew from day zero that when you wanted to build guitars, it was going to be with CNCs. Had you used CNCs before then?
No, never. It was all like what I call like YouTube University. I just consumed as much CNC stuff as possible and learned everything from YouTube. Any kind of troubleshooting, I used forums and stuff, but actually like learning, it was all YouTube. And yeah, the early starts were rough, but eventually you gain enough experience and a little bit of wisdom to kind of like continue on and not make as many mistakes. But really CNC was all about like the precision that I was looking for that I knew you couldn't get from hands, and it was all about the repeatability, right? So like that's something that that automation basically, right? It's really rough to do by hand. But then early on, before I had a YouTube channel, I did have a kind of a production run of guitars, and I stopped doing that because as soon as it felt like a job, right, and then I stopped. And so like it was like, okay, I got to go to the CNC table. I got to do these carves. I got to do these routes. I got to do these carves, these routes. It was the same thing over and over again, and I hated it. So yeah, automation is really cool with CNC, but now I'm just building one-offs. I don't build the same guitar twice.
I was, I don't remember which one this came up on before, but we were talking about that build sometime before. And I had mentioned the fact that one of the first things that grabbed me, and it caught me so off guard, I wasn't expecting it, I almost laughed out loud, was when you specifically said, this isn't ergonomic, this is not going to be fun to play. This design was absolutely 100% specifically aesthetic. And it was awesome that you embraced that, but to hear you say it out loud, it took me completely off guard. Like, never would have occurred to me to go at it from that angle, I actually laughed out loud. It caught me off guard so much, but
Yeah, I gotta be really careful with things like that when I say things like that, because a lot of things I say can be divisive, especially with like new guitar builders. Like I shouldn't talk like that, because we want to be inspirational to like the new builders and the people just coming up. And so if I say something like I say something kind of divisive, like you don't have to do a fall off on your fret job. You don't have to do it. Like that might be really divisive, right? Or you don't have to have the rounded hot dog ends on your frets. You don't have to do that. Like I'm never going to say that on my YouTube channel because it'll just drive people crazy. But those are the things those are things I feel, and sometimes they slip through. Sometimes I'll say that. But yeah, it was something like Ola Strandberg once said in an interview that the problem with ergonomic guitars is that they're ugly. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and his words are something similar to that. And he literally said that's why he wanted to build something that was kind of beautiful and pretty and elegant. And I think there's kind of like this balance you have to do between ergonomic guitars and beauty or elegance. And so if you kind of tilt it the other way and say, well, I'm just going to go for aesthetics, then the beauty kind of grows, but the ergonomics kind of like fall down and you kind of never see them again. So yeah, I think the last two builds, like it was always about the arm, like on the touch points where your consumer is touching your guitar. Those are a little bit hard in the arm, but they look phenomenal. Yeah,
well, it makes perfect sense to me to lay out the expectations of what the driving force is here. So even with newer people, they realize, okay, this isn't I know ergonomics is not the goal here. I wouldn't have thought of it as divisive. I loved it, actually. I was like, I just loved the fact that you just leaned into that and made that the purpose.
I wonder if the idea that ergonomic guitars aren't beautiful comes from the fact that we've been conditioned to think the Telecaster is beautiful or the Strat is beautiful because that was the original.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because I def like Scott's guitar shape, for example, is something that is, if you haven't seen something like that before, I can understand why it would look weird and odd to look at. But I think it is a beautiful thing to look at because of the way it's shaped and the way it's structured. And the same with yours, Mark. Whereas traditional Strat and things, the only way I think about them aesthetically is with the color choices or the combination of the pickups and things. I never think about that shape and think that's a beautiful shape anymore.
Yeah, we've been as a guitar, as guitar culture, right? We've been indoctrinated from the beginning. Like the problem with guitar culture is that it's wrapped in tradition and then like deep fried in nostalgia, right? That's the issue with guitar culture. So it's really hard to escape what is beautiful and what isn't. But on that point, I'm a Strat guy, Daniel. I'm totally a Strat guy. I own way more Strats than I do Tellies, and it's like my go-to guitar. I've never built a Strat because it's already there. There's no point trying to reproduce that. But I don't consider it to be ergonomic. And the issue I think with ergonomic guitars and them being kind of ugly is that the human body's ugly. We have to account for our abdomen and our forearms, and we have to account for where our arms are resting. And if you think about the human anatomy and trying to build and design a guitar around human anatomy, it's going to look weird. But that's just because that's how we're built.
Well, on top of that, realistically, the electric shapes are, kind of largely built off of the acoustic shape, which has been around for centuries. I don't think they were thinking too much about ergonomics at the time with that, big fat box. But
yeah, I'm surprised you said you're a Strat guy because you mentioned making all those Tellies to start with. But it makes sense. You don't want to rebuild a Strat because you're a Strat guy. Don't need to build one. I heard Emily from Get Offset, which is a YouTube channel, talking on a podcast recently about her favourite guitar, which is a Jaguar. But the reason it's one of her favourites is because it's a guitar where the shape's more comfortable for a woman to play because of the way it's cut. And it was interesting to think that obviously that wouldn't be something that was in the designers' minds originally.
Wow.
And then you think about St. Vincent's guitar, which is that sort of shape as well, with a big cutaway in it, which I think is amazing. That was one of the first guitars in a long time that I saw that thought that's a new design that's iconic and I like, that isn't just like one of the old factory designs, but actually it's quite similar, I think, to people like Godfrey guitars, who are more of those bespoke makers who aren't as big and have been doing that kind of geometric shape for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I watched an interview with Tosin Abasi on his Ernie Ball, and he was saying that the Ernie Ball Music Man, they have an R&D department, like a full-blown R&D department. So like coming up with like unique, awesome designs, like that's built into their company. There's not a lot of companies that have an R&D section or arm.
Maybe that's why they're so militant about the 4x2. We spent $2 coming up with that plan.
I suppose that's different with the the Fender over the last few years with their vintage era range of guitars, where they're basically, it's like they've run out of new ideas and they're just mashing up all their previous guitars in different combinations to find a market for.
Mm. We talked many times about how guitar people are weird. They're just. I think my shape has hurt me many times in GGBO. But hey, I've got like 4 of them hanging on the wall now, and the more I look at them, the more the shape looks right to me. And I've been thinking, I need to do something else. I can't keep doing the lap dancer. Everybody hates it anyway. So
I like it. But yeah.
Maybe a future challenge for like a UX Cup or something is that, I think I've mentioned this before, that after watching build off guitars for a couple of years, you kind of know the style of guitar that is associated with different people. So maybe that's the next challenge, that you've got to build a guitar that's unrecognizable as a guitar that you would build on your channel.
With a big fat bone on the 12th fret.
Yeah, or we all pull a name out of the hat and like, I've got to build a Bonehead guitar.
That'd be fun.
I had an idea for a challenge, kind of a crazy idea. You know how there's a lot of YouTubers who are doing like the hand tool only build, like, that kind of style. I was thinking, what about a no tool build, where we define the parameters of what a tool is and what a tool isn't. And then we build a guitar with no tools, where things like, for example, glue would not be a tool. So glue you could use glue, right? You could use epoxy, things like that. A screwdriver wouldn't be a tool, but I think that would kind of be really interesting. I don't know, it's a crazy idea.
No, I like it.
Everybody's first video was grinding a screwdriver into a chisel.
Yeah.
But now it's a tool.
For one of the Luthier's lunch breaks recently, there was a video I put in from what originally came from Shane Spill, who is a cigar box guitar maker, but it was a video about a guy called Weesay Freeman, who was a blind African man who made guitars, and they were basically made from the things he had around. And obviously some tools are involved, but it was oil can banjo type things with bits of wood, and I think the strings on it were from brake cables that he'd taken out of old cars and things like that. And there was just very limited making in it in relation to lots of wood carving and stuff. But it was all somehow put together with the limited things he had and the limited space he had to do it in to make an instrument that you could play. So all the frets were bits of wire that he'd wrapped around the wood that you could move to position to get the right scales and stuff. It was just really interesting. And almost that skill of just making an instrument out of what was around you. While I was watching it, I was thinking, if I was stuck on a desert island, would I be able to make a guitar with those things that are around me there?
with a coconut.
One of the first kind of concepts that made guitar building easier for me when I was starting off was the idea that guitars are not precision instruments. And if you can kind of like get that in your head and let it spin around over and over again, guitars are not precision instruments, then it kind of frees you up a little bit and you can do anything at that point.
I like that you can do anything and you've gone to the most precision you can be, Mark.
One of the things I've put it, which is related to that, is like it's a challenge or an idea to build a guitar with the least amount of measuring that you would do using a ruler. So your frets and your scale length obviously is a given. You have to measure those, but everything else has to be sort of made by feel and what it looks like. So body shape, position of controls. Even like carving the neck, so no measuring up, carving the neck, it's all just sort of done by that feel. So that's sort of maybe a bit related to that. That's what I thought about. Well, what has to be the right length or distance or measurement, and then all the things that doesn't really matter that you could kind of then be forced to do. Because I think that's where I sort of find myself sometimes. Following processes of measuring, facets on a neck and all those kind of things. And I probably, for a build coming up, I've never done the carve the first fret, the nice round, shape, and then carve the 12th fret and then freehand join them up and, make it sort of nice like that. So, I think that's something I wouldn't mind trying it at some stage.
That's a good idea.
I love it's a list of ideas. We need more time.
It's kind of funny.
There are a few responses, Mark, to the idea of a no-tool build in the comments of people that are quite keen to try that. I just want to quickly mention before we go as well, Arran just mentioned the Jörg's Cup. So for people that don't know, that are watching, that are into the Great Guitar Builder, the Guitar Builders Collective have started up an honorary kind of competition in memory of Jürgen Zoller, who was, as Arran always says, if you go back and look at YouTube comments on Great Guitar Build-Off videos from the last few years, he is in everyone's threads. He's always chatting, always interacting with people. And unfortunately, he passed away earlier this year. So in honour of that, the Guitar Builders Collective have got this community competition, although there's no winner this year. He's the honorary winner in memory of him. But the idea is we're going to build with guitars with things we've already got, things we've got lying around. And I think probably in January that's going to start kicking off a bit, people showing off what they're doing with that now the Great Guitar Build-Off is finished. But I want to talk more about that in another episode, because I think that's something we should really push and promote.
Yeah, I think in the new year that'd be a good thing to feature.
Yeah. Mark, before we go, now you've got the Great Guitar Build-Off build done and that pressure, are you having a break from a build, or have you already got your starting point for something new?
As far as like a custom build, no, but other, like, I'm doing repair jobs, I'm doing restorations, and I also have a couple like a crazy idea. I'll give you a sneak peek. Crazy idea number, 42. This is a 100% wireless pickup. Crazy idea. And I was able to like fit all the wireless housing underneath the legs of the humbucker, so it's completely self-contained, and you can actually connect your bridge ground to it. So like this was just a crazy idea I thought I could build, and I built this for like $17. So my next crazy idea is kind of forming, the whole guitar around this wireless pickup. I could literally strum a guitar right now, hover this over the strings, and it would like make a sound out of the amp.
Amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
I'm looking forward to that. Oh, someone just said wireless ground, but you mentioned you can put I love it.
What's another, level on the dream of, adjustable pickups? We can move them around.
Yeah.
You make it real small, you put it under the 3rd fret, and, get it from the other side. I don't know why it didn't occur to me forever that you could just turn a pickup upside down on top of a fretboard. Yeah. So now I have a wiring harness where I put my pups in there, and then I can turn it over, and it's got rubber feet, so you can put it on top of another guitar just to test your wiring. Yeah.
The other design challenge is trying to find a pickup that can capture the string from the side. So one of the issues I ran into a while back with using a bow on a guitar is that the string oscillates differently than when you pluck it, right? And so if you try to have a pickup under when you're bowing, nothing really happens. It's not really distorting that magnetic field as much because you're going side to side. So I think Ned Steinberger developed for his cellos a pickup that somehow they can capture it from the side. And that's the design challenge I want to work on one day, where how can we design a pickup that can get all the strings from the side?
Yeah. When I was working last year on that guitar I built with the iPad in it, I wanted to hide the pickup somehow out the way. You suggested putting the pickup under the fretboard. That's one way of doing it, which I thought was really interesting. Great. So look, in the description for today's video, I put a link to Mark's YouTube channel, Arran and Scott's and mine, but also I put a link to each of their three, because I didn't take part in the Great Guitar Build-Off this year, each of your three profile pages on the Guitar Build-Off, so people can click on that. And I think from there, there's links to buy tickets for Mark and Arran's as well. Should be so. Good luck, you two, with ticket. I guess you don't have to really be involved with the ticket sales. It's just seeing what happens and how it goes.
No, that's right. Forwarding a few posts and things like that, but yeah, that's about it. It's sort of good to have it done and can sit back for a while and then just enjoy the guitar for a month.
Well, I really hope it does raise quite a lot of money for charities in the long run. That'd be brilliant. Great. Well, thank you everyone that's watching. And we'll be back next week, the three of us, talking about the Great Guitar Build-Off and our favourites from this year. Cool. All right. Take care, everyone.
Sorry I was late.
Guys.
It's all right.